Welcome to Wednesday. IB Nation Sports Talk is up and rolling. Vince D'Addario dressed out in his Cubs jersey.
That's right. It's Jersey Day at school. It's homecoming week.
Nice.
So I try to participate as much as possible throughout the week. You know, I don't know that I'm going to be able to participate tomorrow, though. It's like one of those decades days. And the faculty is the 60s. And I don't know that I really have
60s stuff.
I don't really have anything that's going to. So I think my participation ends here.
That's kind of an interesting, like 50s, 60s, or I don't know. Maybe I lump 50s and 60s together. So maybe the attire is about the same. I don't know.
Well, we were the 70s last year, and I have a pretty stellar leisure suit upstairs that I wore last year. And
something polyester.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'll try to find the picture while we're doing this, but
big lapel, big collar.
Yeah, man, it's quality. Got it from Goodwill when I was back when I was probably 20, 21. Still fits, by the way. Nice. And I busted that one out last year, but it's not 60s. You know what I mean? The leisure suit thing is not 60s. So I don't know. I think I might be out tomorrow.
All right.
Anyway.
Tom, how about those Tigers? How about those Royals? Tigers and Royals representing AL Central.
Tigers won yesterday. Did they win again today?
They were winning the last I saw. I think it was 1-0, and the Royals game started I wish the Royals game. I wish they had the early game. They started at 4:30, so I was watching what I could, and they got an early 1-0 lead after winning yesterday.
Okay,
so, very exciting. Baseball, it's here.
I'm surprised I haven't gotten the updates from my father-in-law, who is a giant Tigers fan. So
Tigers are winning 5-2, and the Royals are still up 1-0.
There it is. There it is.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, it's Mailbag Day, so get in your questions. Not just how about those Tigers, but get in those questions, and we will do our best to answer them today. Vince is got to get rolling somewhat early, but
we'll see how it goes.
Just can't go as late as we went yesterday, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
we ended up talking for a while yesterday.
We had a lot going on yesterday, though, so I'm okay with the fact that we went a little long. You know what I mean? We had a lot to go. Got a lot to get through.
Yep. Let's start with this one. At the end of the bye week, will the offensive line have the same personnel and be better at pass protection? Salty made a couple of edits post question. I think one he called an airline, and the other one he called them the old line. But he's talking about the offensive line. So
I like the airline.
Will they have the same personnel? Will they be better at pass protection? What do you think?
Oh man, this is a tough one. I know Brian and Trevor did like a whole show on like personnel and like that kind of stuff, and I don't know exactly what they said because I didn't have a chance to listen to the whole thing. But what I do know is that it needs to get better, and whether that's changing the personnel or just kind of figuring some stuff out this week, if I had to guess, I would say they're probably not going to change the personnel. And I hope they're better. It's more of a hope. I mean, can they get worse? I don't see. I say that, and they probably can. That's the problem. So
the gnat is back, by the way, in my room. That's why I'm.
No, it's not good.
Gnats.
It's not good.
Yeah, I think that the most obvious change is going to be Billy Schrouth whenever he comes back. I don't know if that's going to be coming out of the bye week or not, but my gut tells me I don't see many changes coming because I just feel like if there was a change to be, like if Tosh Baker, for example,
they
thought was the answer, I think maybe we would have already seen a little bit more of Tosh.
Agreed.
At some point. So I don't see anything imminent happening.
Right.
Throw this up there.
I got it up. I don't know if you can see it very well. You might have to.
That is a rockin' solid suit that you got.
You like that?
Yeah.
Not
bad.
We were rocking it that day last year. Baby. So if they give me the 70s, I'm in. But the 60s, can't really rock that. So that was from last year about this time. Got a lot of compliments on the old. I'll do a little zoom here for you.
There you go.
On the old leisure.
Now you can really get the flavor of that sucker.
Come on. Oh yeah, that took my face out of it, obviously, but Now I can't even do anything with it. So there you go. But anyway, that was it right there. Oh, there we go. How about
there it is?
Yeah, that's quality.
Mr. D'Addario.
Quality.
You could be in the disco with that sucker.
I'm telling you, there was a big gold chain there too, which you can't really see. But look at that. Look at that collar. Woo! Man.
Looking good.
Anyway, so
looking good, Mr. D.
That's right, Mr. Kate.
So we've got some other offensive line questions. Can you deduce how good of an offensive line Notre Dame would have if it weren't for the injuries?
No, because we don't know anything. I mean, I know that's a very short, succinct answer, but look, we've never seen Charles Jagasaw in extended time. He had the one game, obviously, in the bowl game, which was great, but we haven't seen him as a starter. The whole deal, right? So we don't know much there, and gosh, we haven't seen enough of the other guys either. For a full stretch, in my opinion. So no, I don't think we can deduce what it would be like without the injuries.
I mean,
better.
I think that, like we've talked about, like Anthony Knapp's PFF grade and stuff like that, which again, he had his best game against Louisville. So he was at least better against Louisville, but it has been not great. I think that Jagasaw, again, we've got the Sun Bowl to base this off of, but I would say that Jagasaw would be like at least 20 to 30% better.
Oh yeah.
For example,
yeah.
So like,
yes.
I think that left tackle position would look a lot different. Let's say Ashton Craig were still in there at center and Schrouth at right guard. So if you had those two as well as Pendleton at left guard, Emil Wagner is still out there. I feel like, again, I think Riley Leonard has been sacked, 4 times, something like that so far this year.
Is that what it is? Okay.
His legs, as we've talked about, are part of that. I think that they would be, they're already a solid running team, but a lot of that is because of the explosiveness that all three, Leonard, Price, and Love have,
sure.
in their ability to create explosive plays. I'm just throwing a number out there. I'd say they'd be at least 20% better if they were all, which I think would be pretty good. There are issues right now, but I don't think that they are completely unfixable issues. Yeah. But the biggest thing is still just getting more consistency from the left tackle position going forward in terms of pass protection.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, exactly how much better, again, it's hard to say because we just never got to see them all
exactly
out there together.
And there's a lot of, individual talent is one thing, and it's very important, don't get me wrong, but the way that they operate together as a unit is also extremely important. And you can have a bunch of individual really good guys, but if they don't operate together as a unit, then it doesn't really matter, right? So I think that is also something that we have to take into account. We've never seen all 5 of the guys that they wanted in the first place play together for any extended period of time.
Right. Aside from pass protection, what's the biggest thing that needs to improve on the offense over the bye week?
Consistency. I mean, just consistency across the board, right? I mean, the wide receivers need to run consistent routes. They need to be consistent off the line of scrimmage. Blocking by the tight ends needs to be more consistent because it's not good right now. Consistency from the offensive line, whether that is in run blocking or pass blocking, either one, they need to be more consistent at it. And Riley Leonard needs to be more consistent as well, right? I mean, he can't miss the layups, and he didn't miss the layups on Saturday, but that was one game. So now we need to see it a few games. So just being consistent week in and week out, I think the entire offense needs to work on that.
Yeah, and I think that, just kind of the continued growth of the passing game is the biggest thing, and consistency being the word. We've seen that growth over the last couple of weeks. Leonard in the last 2 games completed 68% of his passes. He's pushing 70% in the last 2 games. So it's coming together. And I think that just the C word is the biggest thing, the consistency. that comes along with it. He led them to scoring drives 4 of the 6 times they had the ball in the first half, and 3 of them were touchdowns.
True.
So like there are signs that it's getting close,
Right.
And they just need to kind of figure out how to bottle that. And I think some of the stuff that we talked about with him yesterday, that we heard him say, the continued figuring out what works best for Riley Leonard, what's he most comfortable with, those kind of things, and matching that up with the play calling of Mike Denbrock and some of the timely, like, we've talked about the adjustments that Denbrock can make with, showing one look early in the game and then adjusting off that, and the ability to scheme stuff up later in the game, sort of more of that early in the game as well. Like, again, mixing with what works well for Riley Leonard to kind of scheme some of those guys open early and just kind of get him in that early rhythm.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Completely agree.
That's some of the biggest stuff, I think, for me. Joe wants to know, do we think we will see any big changes with starters after the bye?
No, I don't think so. I think people that are hoping that happens are kind of grasping at straws a little bit. I mean, big changes, that means, there's 22 starters on offense and defense, right? What's the definition of big changes? I think if they had 2 changes on offense specifically, that would be massive. And I still don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't either. And like when you look at it defensively, it's like the options are so thin. Like I think my biggest question is, and I don't know if this is an actual question from the mailbag. I thought I saw something similar to this. I want to make sure. Who are they? Are they cross training now, the defensive ends, for example?
Right.
Or are they moving? Like Brian has talked about Preston Zinter, for example, from linebacker. Like, do they move him to give them some more depth at Viper?
Sure.
Is Bryce Young kind of part of the answer over at Viper? What's going to, like, Josh Burnham is still probably the biggest question mark. I think a lot of people, like there's been talk, well, does Burnham move over there? I think if Burnham is healthy, that he and Oben make the most sense on the strong side, and then Young gives you a little bit more athleticism. Like, he can do some more, I think, from the Viper side. In comparison.
I don't know that there's going to be big changes. I guess that's my biggest thing about this question specifically. And he says he's not hoping, he's just curious. And I get that. We're all curious. But generally in football, changing an offensive, like changing the starters and things like that, it's not going to fix what you think it's going to fix. It just, that's a Band-Aid, not a fix. And so I just don't necessarily see that being the case after one bye week. And they've changed a lot because of injury already. So there's not a lot of guys I'm sure that they trust at this point either. So I think that's a big piece of it as well. If this team was 100% healthy, then you've got maybe some guys nipping at the heels and things like that. But those nippers are now starters. Like,
that's exactly, like, when you look at the offensive line is being the biggest question that I think the offense has right now. 4 of the 5 positions have the number 2 guy as the starter.
Exactly.
Right now, compared to
thing.
What we thought it was going to be at the start of the season. And that's the biggest issue, is like, 1, you've got your number 2 guy in there. And then 2, when you think about how that also speaks to the consistency and the synchronicity of the offensive line, because those 5 guys have to work in unison. There's still in it, like the calls from the center and all that different stuff. I think that's to me just the biggest thing is they haven't been able to get in that groove yet, because you've got so many, of the number 2s.
Exactly. And this one kind of goes with it. So I just want to pull it up. Tom says, do you trust the coaching staff to make the necessary changes? I don't think it's about trusting the coaching staff, because I don't know that you could tell me right now what change that they would make that would make this team better guaranteed. I just don't know that that's the case. And since we're not at practice, seeing it every day, like if I was at practice and I saw just throwing names out there. Gerby Lambert was just kicking butt all day long on the second line and just consistently doing well at pass blocking and run blocking and all of those different things. Then I'd be like, God, guys, why are we not making this change? You know what I mean? But I don't have the ability to see that. So I don't know if there is that guy that is doing that.
Right.
So I just don't know.
Yeah. And that's, again, Gerby came in with the bigger recruiting ranking and all that kind of stuff, just like Jaylen Sneed came in with a really high recruiting ranking. I mean, you can't base everything off that, like that doesn't always happen, obviously, right? Like guys don't always live up to that.
Gerby Lambert looks the part. We saw him at practice. He's a big boy. He's got, big lower half. I mean, he's got long arms. He's got all of those things. But the last time we saw him at a practice, now granted, this is preseason, okay? So a lot has happened.
This is during training camp.
This is during training camp, but the last time we saw him with our own eyes, he wasn't even lining up correctly.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
now again, that can change. That's been 2 months at this point, basically.
100%.
So like a month and a half.
He could have grown leaps and bounds from a mental standpoint, or he's not ready. And being a non-early enrollee, he was kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. So there is that, right? And so no matter how gifted and talented he is, and again, I'm not saying that this is the case. I'm saying if this is why they're not giving him a shot in games, if he is not mentally ready, then he's going to be giving up free lanes to the quarterback as well. And so now you just made a change to make a change.
Right.
And that's not going to help.
Yeah. And like to answer the question, yes, I do trust them that they would make the necessary changes because, especially because the left tackle has been such an issue. They're not just going to let that slide if they think that there is an actual better option that could move over there and give them more consistency. So, yeah, I do trust that they will make that change, if they think that it's going to actually improve them. But I don't think they're going to make a change just to make a change.
Look, here's what we do know. Here's what we absolutely know. They're not afraid to play freshmen.
Right.
So it's not like he's not playing because he's a freshman. Okay. So there has to be a reason. And I don't know what it is, but they're not afraid to play a freshman or a redshirt freshman because they have consistently done that.
Well, look, they made a change at punt return. We've seen 3 different punt returners.
Good point.
Faison got injured, but then he came back. And then they went to the Colgate guy, Perlman, because they knew that they had to be better at the very minimum securing the football. And, so they made a change at that position. So I think that they're going to do whatever it takes because they still know that this team has a chance to be a college football playoff team because of what's ahead of them on the schedule this year. And they're going to do everything that they can to get to the college football playoff and not just be in the Sun Bowl or the Duke's Mayo Bowl or the, Pop-Tarts Bowl or wherever it is this year.
Right. Absolutely.
If the offensive line is better at pass protection, will it result in increased performance by all wide receivers or just the great one in Bo Collins?
I like the end there. That's pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
I mean, look, the answer is yes. I mean, because who gets the wide receiver the football? Obviously, that is the quarterback, and the quarterback needs time to be able to throw the football. So if pass protection gets better, now you give the quarterback more time to throw. Now he's more comfortable. He makes better reads, et cetera. It's a domino effect, right? And therefore, the receivers will then reap the benefit of that. So it all starts with pass protection. Now, quarterback has to play better at times as well. The wide receivers have to play better at times as well. So it's all part and parcel, but it does start with the pass protection.
Yes, absolutely. I don't have anything else to add to that. The perfect answer, Vince. The perfect answer.
Man.
The Jaylen Sneed stuff.
Moo.
Like everyone is blowing this out of proportion.
Man.
If Jaylen Sneed were to transfer right now, he can't enter the portal until December, and he's already played in 5 games.
Correct.
So he gains nothing by leaving the team,
Just spite, I guess, if that was the case, right? I mean, he's a sophomore eligibility. He's got 2 years remaining, right? He's a sophomore right now in eligibility-wise. So he's going to have 2 years remaining regardless. So you might as well play out the year. Okay. I guess I said this last night, pump the brakes until you get definitive answers as to what is going on. I just don't like the speculation. Now, the speculation could be correct, and maybe he is upset, and maybe it's all of that. Or it could be the complete opposite. So let's give the kid the benefit of the doubt. Like, I have been on the side of where everybody's speculating and it makes you look bad, right? And it stinks. So let's let him explain away or whatever the situation, or give an explanation, and then we can have an argument as to whether he's going to transfer or whether he's disgruntled or whatever. But at the moment, I feel like everybody needs to pump the brakes a little bit. That's me.
I agree. Like, just maybe the guy was upset. Again, like, the snap count ended up being 12 in that game. But how much of that was just due to, his fit for that opponent and what they needed from that opponent? Because that's part of rotating the 5 linebacker. Now, maybe he didn't take that very well, the fact that he didn't play more. But that doesn't mean that, like, he's leaving the team as a result. So let's just kind of let it play out. I'm sure that there have been some conversations going on. And
I'm sure.
And again, like, nothing is solved right now, like to assume that, well, he got mad and now he's entering the transfer portal.
Right.
Like, sit back and think about it. He's already played his 5 games, so there's nothing to gain by leaving right now. I don't think he's just going to jump ship and head out. Just kind of, I think it's just a matter of everybody getting back on the same page.
Agreed.
How much more confident are you in Riley Mills after he received the Outland Trophy Player of the Week?
I mean, my confidence is growing. It was pretty sky high for the season to begin with, and then it hit like a low, right? So, the best thing I can say at this point is that my confidence is growing again, but it's not where it should be. So there you go.
He's still got something to prove. I mean, it was a step in the right direction. He ended up with 4 tackles in the game. He had half a sack, half a tackle for loss. Like, we just need to continue to see at least that kind of production every game. I mean, that's it. To me, it's just a step in the right direction, but kind of like a lot of other things, just like Riley Leonard has to keep proving it game in and game out, that his play is on the upswing. And just like the offensive line has to show that it's improving. It's the same with Riley Mills. We need to see more consistency for a guy built like that. And with all the expectation that he had on him coming into this season, we need to see more continued production. So, like, if I were going scale of 1 to 10, how much more is my confidence? I'd say like a 2 or a 3, like adding on to my confidence. What's my confidence in Riley Mills right now? I'd probably put my overall confidence in him, just based on what we've seen so far, at a 5 or a 6. It would have been like an 8 coming into the season, but based on the lack of production that we've seen so far, I'd put it at a 5 or a 6 right now.
Yeah, it's growing. Like, the stock is up, but it's much lower than it was at the beginning of the season, for sure.
Decaf wants to know if we're in or out on Joe Rudolph. And there was another one asking about, I couldn't find it. I think am I scrolling past it? I thought I saw one about Rudolph and Washington in here together. Did you see that earlier?
I haven't looked at the starred ones. I've just been kind of starring as I see them.
I mean, I would just say with Joe Rudolph, what we've said about the offensive line already. All but 4 of the 5 offensive line positions are playing their number 2 guy right now. So to me, like, maybe you can have some issues with, whatever you think about Joe Rudolph as a coach, but this is not the situation to judge him on.
Exactly.
Because he's just been dealt such a crazy hand.
That was going to be my complete point. The jury's still out because he's playing left-handed. I mean, he doesn't have the guys that he wanted out there in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not fair to him. Now, here's what I will say. Empirical evidence that we do have about Joe Rudolph. This offensive line and every offensive lineman that we've seen so far, this year, has played hard. They've played very, very hard.
Yeah.
There has been
Very
no lack of effort. There's been missed assignments and then, stuff like that. And there's some fundamental things maybe that you would obviously want to clean up and things like that. But as far as like firing out and doing a lot of the things that we had issues with the last offensive line coach doing, right? Or not the last one, the one before the last one. Those aren't there. So I give him a check there, but I can't overall, like, it's not just him. He's not playing with a full deck of cards, man. Like it's a mash unit.
I don't know if that sounds
well,
right.
Maybe that doesn't sound right. Yeah. I'm saying like the offensive line is his deck of cards, right? So
right.
It's just, it's triage, man. He's doing the best he can with what he's got. And yes, there's talent in the ranks and all of that, but you still don't get.
It's like a one-legged guy trying to run a three-legged race, basically.
It's tough. It's tough. And so I don't want to judge him like the be-all, end-all with what we're seeing. I'll say that.
And that's, and I know it's hard to watch sometimes, but, all things considered, they're playing fairly well. For having a true freshman out there at left tackle and having, all this other fluctuation going on at the three interior spots as well. I mean, all things considered, I don't know. Everyone wants to see it better, but I just don't know how much better it could be. It's not like you had like four guys lined up who had each, even had half a season experience under their belts, right? Like you just had all these inexperienced guys thrown into the fire.
And Bill is saying fairly well, they're legit confused. Yeah, I get it. They're all backups. They're not supposed to be playing.
Again, for what they are, they are playing fairly well.
Look, they have to be better. We're all saying that. They have to be better.
Like if this was if the guys who we have seen the last two games since all the since the Purdue game when all the injuries occurred, if these five were the actual starting five who they thought coming into the season they were going to have out there on the offensive line, if they were playing like this, but I have to grade them on a curve because again, these 4 of the 5 positions are being manned by number 2 guys on the depth chart. That's where you are right now.
Yep.
And the 5th guy is a first-time starter as well. But as we talked about yesterday, Mil Wagner, it's like he's an afterthought because at least he's been their most consistent guy.
Yep. Absolutely. So yes, they all have to be better. They have to be better. If Notre Dame wants to accomplish some of the goals that they have as the season wears on, this group has to get better. No doubt about it. But they're all backups except one guy.
Yes.
Like I think that was a great analogy. You got to grade them on a curve at the moment, right? We can say what they did well and what they did not do well and all of that. And we do. Watch all of our other shows. But what we are saying, though, is you do have to take into account that 80% of this offensive line isn't supposed to be playing right now.
Correct. Like Joe said, they're backups and they're holding up as best they can, and that's how I'm judging them. It's like, I mean, we'd love to see him out there just dominating guys, because again, it's not even like Gerby Lambert and Anthony Knapp are redshirt freshmen. And they had last year under their belt to, at least get experienced into the system, build their bodies up, that kind of stuff. And now, Knapp is in this position, and or Gerby, like if this were a year from now, but it's not. It's like you've got true freshmen, out there, man, in this thing. And again, all these other guys who are number 2s and inexperienced as well. Jeff wants to know, any chance they open up the backup quarterback role? Take a look midseason, number 2, or not realistic?
Not realistic. They're settled with 18 as the backup right now. The only time that there's ever going to be a competition is if Riley Leonard is out for the season. I think at that point, I think it's a 3-man race to figure out who's going to start. If it is just like finishing a game, like that kind of a thing, then it'll be Steve Angeli. But I think if it's a long-term injury, I think that they go to the drawing board and they figure out, okay, what's the future look like? Where are we at? That kind of a thing. So
I agree.
As long as Riley Leonard is healthy, they are not going to open up the number 2 because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on paper who is where. It really doesn't. And Steve Angeli has earned the right to be the number 2 on paper. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. No problem with that.
Nothing to add to that as well.
God, I'm on fire.
You are.
Man.
Right and left. Mark wants to know, Riley Leonard, a transfer quarterback, being the only offensive captain was a big red flag on leadership on that side of the ball.
But who else are you going to give it to? Like, who are the other options? Because they're all young. They're all really, really young. So
yeah, the only like you're not going to have an offensive lineman, which
Nope.
Notre Dame typically has as a captain. But you know, again,
Right.
like look at how inexperienced they are. To me, the only options were Jaden Thomas,
yes,
Mitchell Evans.
correct. And Mitchell Evans right now has not earned that spot with the way he's playing and the way kind of his body language, and just hasn't been great. And maybe that's been the case all along. I don't know. And it doesn't help that he was injured, and so he probably wasn't around the guys as much during the summer and during the spring, and when you kind of earn that captainship. So he's out. And then, honestly, Jaden Thomas was fighting for his life to play. Like, you know, you can be upset, I guess, with the way that the wide receivers have played, but JT was fighting for a starting spot. He was fighting for time on the field. And I don't know that you want to go and give a captainship to a guy who may not play.
Yeah.
To be
like
honest,
a part-time guy.
Yeah,
that's exactly. And remember, I mean, the team did still vote for Riley Leonard. So, like, while you would like to see
Correct.
more guys on that side of the ball be you know, like they're just there obviously weren't enough viable options.
Not a lot of options.
Voted for him.
Yeah.
So, like, is that a red flag? I don't know, but you know, like when you look at the way Leonard plays and as tough as he is and everything else, and you can see how devoted he is to it. So you can at least see how you know, why they would gravitate to that, why 2 years in a row they voted a transfer quarterback as one of their captains. Joe, with Notre Dame not playing this week, which games are we most interested in watching and why? I just realized Brian has not sent us our games to pick this weekend. And I'm gonna scroll through here a little bit because
as we speak.
I hadn't even. I know. Okay,
I boycott all Friday night games because Friday night is for high school.
Yeah.
If I was going to watch a Friday night
even
game,
though you had all the controversy with Miami, Virginia Tech last week.
I know, right? Oregon, Michigan State would be a decent watch, and that doesn't start till 9:00. So I'll probably see the second half of that one. So that's Friday. But as far as
I'm not out on Fridays, so like I will watch at least a little bit. You know what game has me interested is Rutgers, Nebraska. That's on FS1 though. Saturday afternoon, so like not a whole lot of coverage there. Clemson plays Florida State,
Missouri, Texas A&M.
Yeah,
that's a big one. That's a noon game. I'm looking at the noon slate, and I'm not seeing a lot of great noon games.
Yeah,
so that would be that's my noon game.
If I was going to be out pounding the bars Saturday night, Miami and Cal kick off at 10:30. Cal gets to host game day for the first time ever.
Wow.
USC at Minnesota. There's really kind of a dead slate this weekend when you look at it. Maybe that's why we haven't got any games to pick coming our way.
Man.
Virginia Tech's at Stanford, if anyone's interested in that one at 3:30. That's on ACC Network Saturday afternoon. Purdue at Wisconsin, SMU, Louisville. Man. Might be movie time.
Man, I'm trying to look at the 3:30 games, and I'm not really seeing anything that I want to watch at 3:30.
Yeah.
I mean,
Joe says Bama's going to lose to Vandy. Ooh, bet the kid's college tuition.
Oh, boy. Come on now. Look, I think that the night game, the nightcap, if you will, for me is Florida State Clemson. I just want to see if Florida State can get anything going because other than that, the night slate, it's not great.
I know.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Washington beat Michigan. It's definitely a possibility. Michigan's got to go to the West Coast for that one. So that could be fun. But Yeah, not a great slate of games, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll probably be flipping around and looking for what is the actual best game in the moment, like as far as scoring and all that kind of stuff and tightness of the game and things, but not a great slate off the top.
I agree. Do you know about a Penn wide receiver visiting Notre Dame and getting an offer? Josh threw that one in.
So it's Tayshaun Bardo is his name, and he is a 26 kid. I actually brought Brian to the game, the Penn game, on this last Friday, and I purposely asked him to watch the offense and tell me if there were any D1 athletes out there. Didn't tell him anything else, right? And he did pick out Tayshaun as a kid who is a D1 receiver. I don't think he's a high D1 receiver, and I don't think Brian thinks that either. And here's why. He's great at catching the football. He runs really good routes, that kind of stuff. He's got offers from Vanderbilt, all the MAC schools, like some lower Power 4 type schools, right? He doesn't have that extra gear, which I think will prevent him from being a high D1 kid. There were a couple instances in the game where, like a deep ball or trying to pull away from some people where he wasn't really able to do that. And so I think that will keep him probably low D1, but I think he could make, he can make a wide receiver room, stronger for sure. It's a good kid. But I think he just lacks that burst at the end. But he works really hard at it. He's one of those kids that's real active on the 7-on-7 circuit, and that's why he got a lot of love, this offseason and things like that. And look, he's living up to it. He's definitely the number one wide receiver on this team, and he does a really good job. So he's going to go someplace and play football and go to school for free. That's for sure. But I just don't think he's going to get that. He does not have a Notre Dame offer, and I don't think he's going to be at that level just yet. He's a 3-star. So, yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't want to, in Josh's scout team, ? He's not going to come to Notre Dame to run in the scout team. He wants to play.
Well, remember, starting next year, there is 105-man roster limit.
True.
Everyone's got to have some kind of scholarship. So.
Correct. He's not coming to play on the scout team. Like he's the kind of kid who's going to want to play right away. And I think that will have a lot to do with where he ends up going.
Okay. T. Smith 0323, under Denbrock offense, out of these three quarterbacks, who would you take to run his offense? Ian Book, Drew Pine, Sam Hartman.
Number 4. None of the above. I don't think any of these three are a good fit. I mean, they're just not. I don't know what else to say. Like, none of these three are a good fit.
If you're complaining about, Riley Leonard not pushing the ball downfield enough,
you're going to be
how could
really
Ian
upset.
Book be your guy? How could Drew Pine be your guy? Sam Hartman a little bit more, but
he had issues when he was here at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Still can't read a defense.
Yeah. Book's got some, they all three have different levels of mobility, but
man,
especially like behind this offensive line, like Ian Book would be ducking and chucking all the time.
Oh, he would never throw the ball.
Drew Pine would be ducking and chucking all the time.
Yeah, and Drew Pine's less athletic than Ian Book.
Yeah. I think Hartman would at least stand in there and try, but like you said, it's like his that's what stood out to me, or one of the things that stood out about Hartman last year. It's like you kind of see why the guy ended up being a 6th-year guy, because like what you said, the ability to read defenses, that was fairly lagging for a guy who'd been around as long as him. That's something that kind of, was like one of the bigger disappointments, I think. I thought that would be something that he was going to be much farther ahead on than what he is when we saw him last year.
Me too. And I think part of it was being in that Vanderbilt, that Wake Forest, offense. It wasn't a lot to read. It was just kind of snap and go. Either hand it off, you're throwing to one guy. Like, there wasn't a lot of reading the defense. So, man, I'd rather just not play offense.
I do agree with a couple, because of the fact that Book could run, I guess I would probably make him
he
the
doesn't
guy.
they never
if I had to gun to my head, had to choose one of the three.
like they never used book and designed runs. Like it was always him scrambling and running for his life. Like that's how he ran. And I think he would run when he didn't need to run. Like that was the problem with Ian Book, is he would rely on his legs when he didn't need to.
Right, but that's what they forced into him as well. Like going back to the turnover conversation.
This is true.
Solve it with your legs was one of the things that they told him. Solve it with your legs. You know, if you don't think it's there, just eject.
Chief Brody says his scrambling was nice. It wasn't nice. It was really frustrating, is what it was. It was really frustrating because he would scramble out of like a perfect pocket. Like, what are you doing? It was so frustrating to watch. I don't know if I could put myself through that again.
Jason wants to know, how good is Freeman at his staff scouting / recruiting defensive players? Seems like all these dudes from the 23-24 classes are hits.
I mean, they're killing it on the defensive side. There's no doubt about it. And, we're seeing a lot of the young talent on offense too, whether we want to or not at this point because of the injuries and things of that nature. But defensively, there's no doubt they are killing it in recruiting on the defensive side. Ever since Marcus Freeman walked in the door as the defensive coordinator and then obviously as the head coach, I mean, they have just been absolutely killing it on the defensive side when it comes to recruiting.
Absolutely.
It's hit. I mean, wow. Guys are transferring out because of them.
But they also they need more hits up front though in the trenches. They got to start hitting on those interior defensive linemen. That's for sure. That's really the next piece I think for this team. But like skill guys, I mean, just look at last week's game and that's just a perfect example of it. And like Boubacar as an example. And then, Leonard, like the fact that you like look at what you had with Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey,
right,
all out for that stretch in the second half last week. And obviously Mickey for a different reason, but still, like those were the top three cornerbacks going into last week. Those were the top three corners on the roster, and at one point, all three of them were out last week. And look at the job that they still did. I think that kind of says it all.
Yep.
Mark says the Big 12, previous 8, should consider changing the conference name, maybe using the old Southwest Conference. Also, the Big 10 will never change and will confuse in the future with what the 10 means. I mean, I think we stopped believing in what the 10 means for the Big 10 a long time ago, didn't we?
Long time ago. Yeah, long time ago.
I think the Big 12 likes the brand at this point. I think that's, like even like consider the Pac-12 still calls itself the Pac-12, even though they've got 2 teams right now. Everyone just wants to stay with the brand, and that's pretty much it. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't think they ever will.
Yeah, I agree. I'll leave it at that.
What do you think about Salty's question? I think this is one that always pops up when you see as many injuries as there are. Is there an association between the Notre Dame playing surface and injuries?
Look, when it was raining, it gets slippery. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't know. I think you have to question everything. Like we started hearing about the freaking shoes again and like all this other stuff. And it's sometimes kids just get injured. And sometimes that's just what it is. Notre Dame's never going to go back to grass. Even though there are some old heads out there that want them to go back to grass, it's never going to happen because for whatever reason, and everybody's like, well, the Packers can do it. Well, for whatever reason at Notre Dame Stadium, they can't grow grass in November.
Yeah.
It's a dog track every November, every time. And so they're never going to go back to it. And plus, they do all kinds of other events in the stadium now that they have turf instead of grass. They're never going to go back. So could the slippery surface be a thing? Yeah, it could. It's just that's what they're going to have to live with.
But look, Jordan Faison got hurt at Texas A&M on grass on a hip drop tackle in the season opener. 2 offensive linemen and Jordan Botello both got hurt on grass at Purdue in the same game.
Good point.
So it's not all because they're playing on artificial turf at Notre Dame Stadium.
That's a good point.
Like sometimes stuff just like so many offensive linemen getting their legs rolled this year.
Yeah,
That
has
like
nothing to do
regardless
with
of what turf
yeah.
you're on, you're just going to get hurt when that stuff happens.
That's a great point about Purdue, though, because they probably have one of the, and Tom is the one that brought it up, so I want to give credit where it's due. They have one of the best grass surfaces in the country because that's what they do there. Like they have, I mean, that's what they do, So, yeah, they're never going to go back to that.
DK calling you out.
Yeah,
you said they're never going to go back, which means obviously they'll have grass within the next 5 years. So.
Just means no more concerts, no more any of that stuff. Like they're never. I'm sorry, there's too much money.
I'd be curious to see, because BK is the one who pushed for the artificial turf and got him to do that. I would be curious to see, like, if at some point Marcus Freeman decides he'd rather play on grass and give it a shot and try to push that angle himself. I don't know.
It's possible. I don't.
But I do like. It was rough, man. Like when we would go down there, to the field, because media, we get to go down the last 5 minutes if we want. And one, I always loved the smell of the crushed grass, by the end of the game and stuff like that. But remember Pete Carroll, whining about the long grass and all that stuff in the 2005 USC game. And I mean, that grass was long, but I think Charlie Weiss said, it's like there's only so much you can do in this part of the country. Like you can't cut it too short because then you're going to lose it, unless you're going to. The only way to solve it would be if they brought in those like the grass rolls or whatever you call them, and like the sod, and like resodded, like you brought in a fresh load of sod from Arizona or something like that in November, and I have no idea what that costs to do that. But then you've also got pieces of sod that have to, you got to make sure that sit together right and all that kind of stuff. I just think it would be way worse than what they've got now. Yeah,
I think the Packers have like a hybrid system where it's like partial grass, partial fake. And I don't exactly, I would be lying if I said I know how all that works, obviously. And it can be done. It's never been done well at Notre Dame. That's all I know. And they had tried to, change the grass. They brought in brand new grass in the middle of the season. I remember, one of the last few years that they had grass with Brian Kelly, and it never took. And so it was awful. I mean, big, giant chunks flying through the air and everything else. Like, that's more dangerous than turf, So if they can figure out a way to make it work, then fine, whatever, right? But I just don't see that being the case. I just don't.
Yeah, Josh said he thought some of the turf surfaces had filter draining. Yeah, all these fields have like filter
the
draining
artificial ones.
Underneath.
That's what costs the most money is the draining system underneath. The actual carpet and the filler, that's not the cost, man. The cost is the underneath, the drainage and all that stuff that they put in. Yeah.
Okay. Chief Brody, it worked for 130 years.
Not well. Sorry.
Leather helmets worked for what, 30 or 40 years, and then they moved on too. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's a lot of things that, probably through the late 60s when we started seeing turf fields. That's around the time the Astrodome was built and that kind of stuff. At least they don't play on that horrible.
The AstroTurf.
The turf they used to play on, man. If you'd ever been on those fields,
cement
it literally felt like concrete.
Yeah, it was cement with horrible carpet over the top. It was awful, man. It was terrible. Terrible. But I will say, brand new field turf. The bounce that you get off of it in the spring when you're running, like it does make you faster. I don't care what anybody says. When you're bouncing off the top of that, you can move on that turf. So guys who are fast, speed guys love turf.
I agree with Steven. Perfect world, I would have grass as well. But you're just in a place where the weather starts turning and, again, like the ability to keep the ideal surface. And now the fact that you're the potential for home college football playoff games in December, I think that you're just that much better off.
Good call.
Sticking with the artificial stuff.
Well, and Purdue, just to name one, right? Purdue specifically, even though they're about 3 hours south of us, they don't get the winter like we do. They don't. They do not get the snow that we do down in West Lafayette as we do up here because we have the lake effect and all that other stuff. And they just don't feel that down there. Like Indianapolis, Lafayette, like their winters are
basically everybody but us.
I mean,
yeah.
But it's true, right? I mean, it's completely different. And if you don't live up here and you weren't up here, you think we're like crazy people. But I'm just saying their winters are not as bad. Like when we go down to Indianapolis in the wintertime, it's completely different than it is up here.
True story. True story. No lies there. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm so ready for rapid fire at this point. I hope you don't have any grass questions.
Let's do it. No grass in rapid fire. Woo! Fill in the blank. Riley Leonard being named the Senior Bowl Offensive Player of the Week, as well as being named to the Great Eight list by the Davey O'Brien Award for his play against Louisville this week, is blank.
Hilarious. It's just hilarious. When every time I saw them come out with another award for him from this past week, and he didn't even he played well, but I don't know if he played
complaining.
And then they keep complaining. It's freaking great. Like there's so much more road for Riley Leonard to play better, right? And he's getting these accolades the way he played this week. You know what I mean? And so it's like, what's going to happen if he actually does put it together and throws for like 250 and runs for 100? Like they're just going to send the Heisman Trophy to to South Bend. But I think it's hilarious because everybody, there's a certain faction of people that just think he sucks.
Well, and then it's like, great. To me, it's a great sign that the offense actually is going in the right direction because, it's weird because kind of what you were talking about. It's like, it seems like his play against Louisville did swing some people, but really like the last couple of days, we've been getting a lot more pushback on him, just like a lot of discord around him, but based on the last day or so, it's just like daggers coming his way and stuff like that. But, you go back and it's like, you look at that Louisville game, not including the end of the first half and the end of the game, they had the ball 11 times. They scored 4 touchdowns and kicked a field goal out of 11 times they had the ball, so it's a pretty good percentage. And when you look at where the offense actually has come in the last 3 weeks, this goes back to Purdue. They've gone from number 110 to number 50 in scoring in the past 3 weeks in the nation. And their pass efficiency has also jumped from number 130 to number 99. Now, is there still room for improvement? Of course there is, but it's incrementally getting better, which, I don't know how much you can ask for at this point. He completed 68% of his passes, 3 touchdown passes in the last 2 games. And oh, by the way, he's also scored 7 touchdowns this season, and he's still 4th in the nation in terms of quarterbacks, rushing offense. The Navy quarterback and the Army quarterback are 2 of the guys ahead of him. And as we've said, all that stuff counts. So hilarious is probably the right answer. That's a good one, Vince.
I couldn't help it.
So Leonard currently has 374 rushing yards, which is 1 more yard than Jeremiah Love's 373. Which of those 2 is going to have more rushing yards at the end of the season?
Oh, it's going to be Jeremiah Love. It's got to be, right? I mean, at least I hope it is. I hope it is. The Jeremiah Love should have more rushing yards. I was actually surprised at that stat when I saw it originally. That's crazy to me. But Jeremiah Love has to, right? Right?
What's the other crazy thing is Leonard also has only 2 more carries right now than Love. So we've talked about, Love is only getting around, 10, 11 carries a game and that kind of thing. I mean, they are right there neck and neck right now. Riley Leonard, 59 carries, 374 yards. Jeremiah Love, 57 carries, 373 yards. And now part of that, of course, part of Leonard's carries are, he has been sacked again, just a handful of times, so that's actually taken away from his yardage, but that will count against him regardless. I'm going to say, I agree. I think it has to be Jeremiah Love because it just seems like over the long haul, you would expect that that's going to happen. But as of right now, I mean, they're basically split in almost exact same carries and almost, again, 1 yard separates the two of them. But I would just think that over the course of an entire season, Jeremiah Love's going to overtake him.
I would hope so. But I guess you never know.
I know. So Notre Dame and NBC, of course, determine the home game kickoff times before the season starts for all Notre Dame home games. And then they stick with those kickoff times all season long. They never change them. But we know, like, when the Irish go on the road, the other TV networks have like the 2-week window to determine their game time. So my question is, would you want Notre Dame and NBC to wait to announce the game times like ESPN and ABC does, so like maybe Louisville would have ended up a primetime game or, whatever it happens to be? Like, would you want them to wait into that 2-week window to announce their game times, or do you just like them doing it at the start of the season and then sticking with it?
Because I am a type A planner, I like having the times set.
You need to know.
I need to know because of all of my other gigs and stuff that I do, like, and this is a Vince problem, right? But like, I have supervision things I have to do for the high school. And so they have a lot of stuff on Saturdays, obviously. And so we were just talking about it today, Sean. This is a perfect example. So 2 weeks from now, when Notre Dame plays Georgia Tech in Atlanta, we don't know what time that game is. And Penn is hosting like soccer regionals, volleyball sectionals, like all these different things.
What's Vince's day going to look like?
And they're like, when can you be here? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, so I need to know these things, man. So I would much rather have it planned out. That's where I'm at.
I like just having it laid out in advance as well, because it is, a pain, when we have to. Right. And I think, like, and even from NBC standpoint, now that they've got the Big Ten deal, it's like you would be juggling all kinds of games around if you waited into that 2-week window to be announcing that. But like ESPN and ABC still have to deal with it as well. And I think the other thing that I kind of wonder is, like, because Notre Dame is so unique, like it's not a state school, so you don't have people just driving and, like you do still let people have driving an hour, 2 hours away or whatever. But you have people literally flying in from all over the country for most Notre Dame home games, and I think, on a greater percentage than like Alabama or Georgia, whoever it happens to be. So I think that having a fixed game time from that perspective has to be pretty important as well. So it's like, we booked our tickets at the start of the season, and now instead of a 3:30 game, it's going to be an 8:30 game, or vice versa. When you're making your flight plans and all that different kind of stuff, both in and out.
It's good to know. I'm telling you, it's good to know.
So NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, he was on Good Morning Football on the NFL Network yesterday. He said he was once the personal driver for then NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle, back when Goodell's career was starting in 1986. So Goodell, young Roger Goodell driving Pete Rozelle around in 1986.
Cool. I like it.
Couple different questions for you. What NFL figure, past or present, would you want to chauffeur around for a day? Start with an NFL figure.
Okay. So I've actually been thinking about this one for a long time. And here's my answer. Howard Cosell.
I like that. I didn't think about Howard Cosell. I mean, he was an NFL announcer, so technically he's an NFL figure.
Yeah, so I went a little off the beaten path with it, but I think his life would have been fascinating to follow on a daily basis. So I'm going with Howard Cosell.
I like it. My answer was Tony Romo. Like, I might actually switch to like a John Madden because I hadn't thought about it like that. But Madden was a coach, but I think either one of them. I think either one of those guys, and I think that Romo. Can't remember if you and I talked about this before. I think part of the reason that, like, especially early on, like, he's obviously been around for 6 or 7 years now at this point. So
right,
a lot of his newness is worn off, but especially when he was first starting off, like, not just predicting plays, but Romo was just a dude you could hang out with. He seems like he would be a fun guy. It's
Wasn't
like
he?
you drive,
No.
you get in and it's like, hey, here we go, Sean. It's like, hey, we're going to go to the golf course and then we're going to go get our Coronas and hang out at the beach and, all this different stuff. So I'd go Romo.
He did his fair share of dating too. And so
it's very true.
I'm just saying.
Might not have been a bad, to be Romo's wingman.
That's all I'm saying. I'll leave it at that, but I'm just saying.
It's very true.
I agree.
Very true. How about a Notre Dame figure, past or present, that you would want to chauffeur for a day?
See, this one was interesting too, because I think that, doing a player is tough because I'm older than this guy. So that would be weird that I was chauffeuring him around, but I'm going to take the weirdness out of it. But like Brady Quinn, Jeff Samardzija, like one of those guys, I think would have been pretty cool back when they were. And I wasn't a lot older than them, but I'm a little older than them, so it still would have been a little weird. Other than that, it would have been, like I think Tony Rice would have been a fun guy to hang out with.
Yeah.
When you watch like the Catholics versus Convicts documentary that they did, he's just, his freshman year, he's just one of the guys, and he had a ton of friends on campus. And I think that he's a very, very likable guy. And so I think it would have been fun to hang out with him. And of course, the ultimate answer is Lou Holtz. I mean, be doing like magic tricks in the back. Like that'd be cool.
Yeah. Eating his peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
That's right.
Did I ever tell you that like this guy that I used to work with, his wife flew on a plane once, like into South Bend, and Lou Holtz got his little brown bag out and he pulled out his peanut butter and jelly sandwich and ate it on the plane.
That is fantastic. Yep. Fantastic. They never feed you enough on the plane. You got to bring your own.
I know. Bring your PB&J. I'd go Lewis Nix. Always one of the best personalities, a good one. Great personality, upbeat, may rest in peace. So the big Lou,
there you
Chocolate
go.
Thunder would be my guy for sure. Fill in the blank. Army and Navy are tied for the American Conference lead right now, and it's blank that they could end up playing each other in their conference championship game 1 week before they meet in the actual Army-Navy game.
I think that's wild. And I hope it happens. I hope it happens. Look, I can never get enough of Army-Navy, and I think that would be a fun game to watch twice. I'd be okay with that. And right now, both teams are playing out of their minds. They're playing really, really well. They're playing really good football. And so I'm all for it. I mean, again, you can't get enough Army-Navy. So I say bring it on. And I don't know where they play the American Conference Championship at, but I think they need to upgrade it to an NFL stadium. They do it twice.
Well, you know what's crazy when you think about this, and USMA 87 is in there because, they are in the same conference. They didn't used to be in the same conference, but it is kind of odd that considering they're in the same conference now, the Army-Navy game would still come after the American Conference Championship game. But
that's weird too. But they allow Army-Navy to basically have their own weekend.
Right.
Which I'm all for too. I mean, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But yeah, 2 weeks in a row, bring it on, man. I think that's fantastic.
Army-Navy, 2 weeks in a row. The way it's shaping up now, I've seen somebody say this. I mean, like they're a group, they're both group of 5 teams. I mean, that both of those games could potentially be for a college football playoff berth, the way things are shaking out. Now, what also makes it interesting is the fact that they're both playing Notre Dame in the same season within just a few weeks of each other. So that kind of throws a little wrinkle into all that kind of stuff as well.
I'm trying to figure out where they play this game. I found an article that says it's going to be in prime time. It's going to be Friday, December 6th at 8 p.m. So it's going to be on prime time.
Is this
on
ABC? The AAC championship?
But it doesn't say where. So maybe it's just hosted. I guess it could technically just be hosted by, a team. I suppose that's possible. But I'm trying to do the digging here.
And
I'm
Jeff
not
says they both
it.
haven't been this good since black and white TV. I mean, you got that right.
Let's see. Last year it was at Ullman Stadium in New Orleans, wherever that is. Well, it's probably home of Tulane because it was Tulane and SMU last year. So it looks like somebody just hosts it. Upgrade, baby. It's a Friday night. Upgrade to an NFL stadium.
There you go. All right, New York Yankees radio announcer John Sterling retired earlier this season. You may have remembered he started the season calling the games, and then he decided he was going to retire. And they had a big ceremony. They gave him a big screen TV and all kinds of stuff at Yankee Stadium. But now the Yankees are in the playoffs, and they brought Sterling out of retirement to call postseason games. Do you buy or sell this move?
I'm on the fence about this one. I initially was like, buy it. He's a treasure, let him call it, whatever. But I kind of want to sell it because I feel bad for the guy who's been calling the games all season and now he doesn't get to do it.
Yeah.
They bought you a big screen for a reason. You get to watch the playoffs from the comfort of your own home.
That's exactly it. And it's like, are they going to do this every year? I mean, the Yankees are in the playoffs every year. Like, I realize he's been around. He's called a lot of playoff games,
sure.
But you're absolutely right. He retired, and then other guys took this job. They were doing it, and now Sterling just gets to come back and basically grab all the glory. So I've got to sell it. I don't like it at all. I hope this doesn't become like an annual thing. I mean, are they going to drag him out of retirement every year?
Because that's messed up. That's messed up.
I know. So I wanted to end on a bit of a somber note here. Someone that I knew very well. He played baseball for Notre Dame for Paul Maneri and for Dave Schrag. Recruited by Paul Maneri. When Paul went to LSU, he ended up playing, I think it was the last year or 2 years of his Notre Dame career at Notre Dame. And then he actually went and joined Paul Maneri's staff at LSU and was part of the staff when Paul and the Tigers won the national championship in 2009. But Ross Brazowski passed away earlier today after a long battle with cancer. He had, I think it was like stomach cancer and intestines, and it was just really bad. We were fortunate when Jesse and our old friend Pete LaFleur, who used to work in the Notre Dame sports information staff, when we went to the College World Series to cover Notre Dame 2 years ago, Ross was part of a group of a lot of former Notre Dame players who was out there. And we got to, to visit with him and that kind of thing. But Ross's wife announced this afternoon that Ross passed away. I mean, and the guy just, like, I would see photos of him on social media, and like he's got 2 little girls, and he would like go out to their events, and he'd have like a feeding machine. And
oh man,
it was just,
yeah, take your time, Sean. And I know that this is tough for Sean, and it's tough for all the Notre Dame baseball community, and that's why we wanted to talk about it here, in this forum, and when Sean comes back, there's a cut that I know he wants to play of one of Sean's calls of Ross and how that went, and it's one of the best calls ever, man. So we definitely want to hear that one. Definitely
I don't know about that. But I do want to, I need to get back in the frame of mind. Like, this was, like obviously getting to call Notre Dame, going to the College World Series in 2002, as far as Notre Dame baseball, was the greatest, 2 weekends of my career doing that, between, the super regional and then them being in Omaha. But then a few years later, 2005, I think Ross was a freshman, and they were playing St. John's. They had won 16 games in a row. They had a 16-game winning streak. This is I think it's like middle of April. And they're down by a run going into the bottom of the 9th inning with a 16-game win streak on the line. The leadoff batter, the catcher, Sean Gaston, had just walked, and Ross Brazowski came up to the plate.
Brazowski in a bunt situation, a sacrifice situation with the tying run at first base for Notre Dame and nobody out here in the ninth inning. Paul Mainieri calls Ross over. And now the bunt has been something Ross has had some problems with this year. He does have 3 sacrifices, but, we saw Cody pop that bunt up last inning, and Ross has done that a few times this year. Armento from the stretch, third baseman playing up. Brazowski takes a fastball away. 1-0. Maybe that's what Paul was telling him. Be thinking bunt, but make sure it's a strike and just make him throw you something. Obviously, he just got done walking Gaston. Ross taking. It was a breaking ball called strike on the inside corner, 1-1. Gaston at first with Notre Dame trailing 5-4 in the bottom of the ninth. Brazowski at the plate, 1-1. He swings and he lines it to right center field. That one gets back and into the gap. Here comes Sean Gaston, heading for third. Sean Gaston rounding third. He's heading for home. Brazowski heading for third base, and Ross is in there with an RBI triple. The Irish tie the ball game, and they've got the winning run at third base.
What a drive by Ross Brazowski. It is Ross's second triple of the season, and in a sacrifice situation, a 1-1 count, Brazowski kills one to right center field, and now the winning run is at third, and the infield is in for St. John's, and Alex Nettie is at the plate.
And the game actually ended one pitch later when Alex Nettie hit it out of the park to win the game in walk-off fashion. Back-to-back pitches, Ross with that triple, and that is like when I think of Ross, like I said, other than what I've known of him for the last several years as a father and a husband and just an all-around great guy. Like in terms of his playing career, that is the moment that I think of when I think of Ross Brazowski coming up clutch when his team needed him. And like the photo that you see that I used as the cover there, this is from Omaha, and Ross is the guy. The skinny guy next to me with the sunglasses in his shirt, and that's Pete LaFleur, the former SID, next to him. And the other guy with the Notre Dame cap is Javi Sanchez. He was part of the College World Series team in 2002, and Ross and Javi were on Paul Mainieri's staff together at LSU. And then Ryan Conley, they're a teammate of Ross's, is to the far right. Dan Capella, one of the tall guys standing behind me, a former pitcher. And then the other guy in the green shirt and the gray Notre Dame cap is Matt Strickroth, who is also a teammate of Javi's on that 2002 team. But those are some of the guys that we got to hang out with. And again, rest in peace, Ross Brazowski, one of the great ones, a great, not just a great ball player, but a great man, a great dad, a great father as well. And he'll be sorely missed. So
I just love excited Sean on the mic. It's one of my favorite things. We've done hundreds of games together, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. I love excited Sean. That's my favorite. I get excited every time I hear you make an excited call, and it's one of my favorite things to listen to.
Those were the days, like the great Notre Dame baseball days.
Yeah, those games were fun to do. Those games were fun to do, man. I loved stepping in. Every time you would ask me, hey, you want to go do a game with me over and over? Yes, I do. Yes. It's great.
That was a lot of fun. All right. Well, again, thanks for at least trying to kind of get my mood back there in the end. And obviously condolences to anyone who's lost anyone from cancer. And Ross was just far too young to go. And again, rest in peace to Ross Brazowski. We will be back tomorrow. Special guest on tomorrow's show that I can now announce. Notre Dame women's basketball coach Niele Ivey will join me on tomorrow's show. Trevor will also be in. Vince gets a day off. Trevor Trowbridge will be in. And we'll do some we in, we out, and just have all kinds of great fun doing that as well.
That's right. That's right.
Hit the like button if you would before you leave. Jesse Woods. Yes, I absolutely remember Jesse Woods. Brian, good dude. He's coaching a Division III team out in New England, where he's from originally, I believe. So
nice.
Yep, he was part of Mickey Oki's team. or his coaching staff.
Yeah.
He and Chuck Cristano were there together. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you being here, and we will talk to you tomorrow again. Hit that like button before you leave, and we'll talk to you then on IB Nation Sports Talk.